use. I'll check and see if we can come out on a Saturday morning and just see how things are. But anyway, so that's that right there.
Nice. So we have Jim and Terry put a fundraiser together with Coastal Heart Fermentary. Did I say fermentory? Fermentory. We did pretty well. Okay, $594 over dollars. They gave us 10% of the profits. We also had in the 594, $126 in tips that somebody gave into our tip jar. So good night for us. That's added to the 1,300 that you saw. So we're getting close to $2,000 now. And then if you guys want to go out and buy some more wood, all that wood goes to this too. So that trailer up there, $2. Okay. So that's Gary's tree sale. So whatever we get from there, we'll put in there. We do have our first vet. He finished class on Saturday. He's down in Pittsboro, North Carolina. We'll put a schedule together and see who wants to volunteer. Again, we got 6 classes between April and October, except for August. So we'll get more as we go throughout the year. So if you can't help the first one, no biggie, there'll be plenty more. Yeah. And then
we talked about
Bob, you can talk about the perch all over again.
Yep, it's okay. We move it around a little bit just to keep everybody on their toes. All right, so here's our show and tell portion. If anybody has something non-jig that they want to show off, Scott, did he make it?
Scott's got a chair.
Oh, there you go. I was like, did he make it back? Because he did, Scott.
Okay. It looks like mahogany, but it is not mahogany.
Oh.
This was a wine bottle and wine glass holder, wall mounted. I saw the plans a couple of years ago. It was put out by Craig. They were promoting pocket hole screws. It's on their build something, and plans are readily available out there. So I finally got around to building it, and then I had to build another one for a full saw and liked it, but I just thought it was kind of neat. It's they wanted like their plans called for 6 pieces put together on the back on all pocket hole screws. I said, no, I can clean it up better than that, and glued up 3 pieces, finished them off, and just made some other modifications. So there's no pocket hole screws in this thing. The wood is steel, looks a lot like mahogany.
What do you call it? Peel?
Sapele. Yeah.
Also heard it's Bailey.
Bailey. Yeah, South America. It's kind of equivalent to our pine trees here. It grows big, fast, and you get big slabs out of it. It's harder than mahogany, so that's why they use a lot more in flooring. But I said it looks like that. So it was pretty simple to do. I wished I'd read the instructions a little better on it when I was making it, because these pieces here, these cutouts, they show you the piece, but the way they do it is you cut out the blank, and then you have to clamp another piece to it so you can drill that hole right there on that seam. If I was going to do it for a third time, I would make it a much wider piece, drill the hole, and then cut it to width. Yeah. Otherwise, there's a lot of clamps on the on the drill press. The other thing too is, turn it around. Because it is heavy, and after you put all the wine bottles on that, I was looking for a good bracket to hold it, so I found this French cleat on the internet, and they also call them Z clamps in some places, but the this piece here would mount to your wall, and it just goes up in here and nice and strong. What I liked about it was actually has a little level in it, and also because of the way it works, you can actually slide this thing if you need to do some alignment. So I thought it was just a nice, simple project to build.
You guys saw those out there too, right?
Yeah.
Fine. All right.
Last month when we had the cars, I forget the two gentlemen's name, but they had the little car that they had made like a plane. I was talking about the one my father had made. He made 3 of these. If I read the date correctly, it says 1982. And he made 3 of them, one for my brother, myself, and him. And mine's, of course, in the house, but his was in the barn that we converted into business for salon repair. And one of the back rooms was the office, and they had it up on the shelf. Well, the roof leaked several times, and he started coming apart. And I had looked at it. I said, I got to take him to fix it. So after I got done fixing it, I took it and set it on the table. And I said, you know what? I'll make a great business card holder. So that's what I use it for when I go to my shows. I put it right in front of my cash box, and I just put business cards on it just for a little display. And just a little memory of Dad, all the things he taught me and showed me, and the long conversations we tried to use on the phone back and forth between him and here in Ohio, trying to discuss how to make stuff and things sometimes. So it just
Very good. What's over here?
At the newsletter articles over the past year. That is finally finished. Gonna be delivered to my mother-in-law tomorrow. So, thought I'd bring it in and give everyone a chance to see what they've been reading about in the paper newsletter for the past year. But yeah. So, yeah, all I got was
Hey, anything else? Or is that all the show, Pat?
Couple of them. I was in old boy shop today. It's got a Firematic scroll saw, it's an old one, 24-inch stroke. Just put a motor on it, had some issues with that existing motor, so he put a new motor on it. It's on a base. If anybody's interested in a stout scroll saw, just give me a call, and I think I can wire you right up. Second thing, more stuff for sale. Working a little part-time machine shop down in downtown Norfolk since he opened it up in '72, and they're fixing to close the doors. And he sold off most of the equipment, but there's still and we're talking metal, still a metal lathe and a Bridgeport milling machine. If anybody knows somebody that may do some car work or do some anything that or, some serious, metalworking, making chips things, just give me a call and I'll wire you right up for that also. So, have a good evening. Yes, sir.
All right,
Hey, yes, sir.
what's next? Okay, so we're already at Chris.
Two things. First off, you didn't get a door prize. If you didn't get a door prize, ticket, see Greg. Then we got a couple things over here. You wanna put a buck or so in there, $1 a ticket, six tickets for $5. We got the little plastic dish in front of them.
Is that
Veneer,
everything? So
Veneer.
maple veneers and
heavy duty,
a caster system. You put a piece of plywood in it. It came with something that was donated, and we scrapped the lathe that was on it, but the casters are still there. Okay. How long are we gonna break here? We're kind of running a little ahead, but I think we're gonna have plenty of content, right?
Yes, one question before we break. No judgments. Good raise of hands, who brought a jig to share?
Looks like you got 4 or 5.
Okay, I just so for timing purposes, thank you.
Okay, all right, so come back, what? 20 after? If anybody wants to go check out the lumber, let Chris, me, or Gary know.
lumber they sell.
It's red oak. Plants are.
All this stuff.
I've gotten that question a couple times.
All right, folks, hear us online again? Stay put. Dennis, we good? All right, and with no further delay, Ryan Evans is, where did you come from before this? You were in California?
So I've lived here almost all my life. When I went out to, when I went to college, right after college, I moved out to California for a job, Bay Area. Lived out there for about 8 years. Learned a lot from the guild out there. Now I'm back because I had kids and I need some help.
Well, we're glad to have you back. You're bringing ideas back to the guild, and one of his was he wanted to demonstrate the jigs that he uses in some of his work. And unfortunately, he has more, he said, with lathe work than he did even with flatboard. So you can imagine what his shop must look like. But
Yeah. If you add up the templates, maybe not, but I didn't really count the templates.
yeah, so what is meant by a jig, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's jig is basically anything that helps you make reproducible work that's sort of custom to that particular feature or work.
Exactly. As I started looking around the shop trying to find jigs, I had a hard time defining or maybe
Yeah.
stopping the definition of a jig. I was picking up a piece of paper. I was like, oh, that's probably gonna be a jig.
Yeah, so do you have a definition of it in?
No, I
in your-
don't.
Oh, it's all right. So guys. All right, thanks. So yeah, I was going around as well, you know, and basically any tool could be loosely defined as a jig. So we'll just say something that's custom to a particular cut that helps you make repeated or tailored sort of repetitive, higher quality, both throughput and quality. So
There's also fixtures. And so jigs and fixtures, kind of the same, kind of different. I looked online for like a definition of each, and it was all over the map. So I know this is incorrect, but I'll just call them synonymous with each other because
Right.
no one I could tell had a definition of one versus the other and why they're different.
all right, well, take it away and just yell at me if you need an extra hand.
I think.
All right. Yes, please. All right. So this title's very tongue-in-cheek, advanced jiggery. I just thought that fit perfectly because I don't know what I'm doing. Don't take anything I say seriously. Please, if there's something that I say that you guys disagree with, I love it. Bring it to me. I want to learn. This is the reason why we're all here, and certainly the reason why I'm here. There was a guy I was just talking to Jay about this. There was a guy that did a presentation for the Wood Turners group. His name is Rich, and he started off his presentation saying, I don't know why I'm up here. You guys are the professionals. You guys know more than me. He was more sort of a newer turner, new to turning, I should say. And I feel like I'm the same way. Like I've learned a lot, but I feel like, I have a lot to learn. So it's kind of weird for me to be on this side. So I want this to be an open discussion. If you have an opinion, please feel free to voice it. It's not going to hurt my feelings. You say, why the hell did you make that? You could have done it this way, that way, this way. I'm good with that because there is 1,000 different ways to do things. Everybody works different ways. So, please, I want, the only way we learn is for everybody to collaborate. All right. So this is a quick table of contents. I'm going to cover some of my favorite jig makers, mostly on YouTube. I call it a jig challenge. I needed a short name. This is, I'm going to ask you to identify a jig. I'm going to hold it up and ask you to identify it. And if you can, there's some incentive involved. I'll give you some hints because some of them are way out there. All right, so we'll get into it. Well, and then I'll talk about all my jigs, and then we'll share with the group, and then I'll wrap it up at the end. All right, my favorite jig makers. Who here has heard of Izzy Swan?
Easy, yeah.
Yes, I love Izzy Swan. He is quintessential. Yeah, he's quintessential my way of doing things. Like you can, and what I want to really drive home is all of this stuff was practically free. I could go out and buy all of this stuff and I would be in debt. So what I try to do is, unfortunately, I get into the middle of a project and I'm like, something that would really, really help right now. And then I stop and I think about how can I make that? And usually it's 5 minutes and I put it together real quick and it serves a purpose and I throw it away. So as many as you see up here, there's about twice as much in the trash can. But this is, I forgot to bring it. I really wanted to, and I forgot last minute to unbolt it from my table, but I actually built this router table. This is a perfect example of how you don't have to go buy things. This router table, essentially free. I mean, it's, you got to buy the plywood, but you probably already have the plywood and it's scraps, right? So I saw this, this video came out 6 years ago. I probably saw this 5 years ago. And I fell in love with this design. So it's very simple. It's a flat piece of plywood, which is already flat. You don't have to do anything to it. And you can see on the back, no. Okay, you can see the back end that's resting on the table. That's just screwed down to the bench. And there are some supports that go down on the sides that keep it from, racking as you're working on it. And then a very simple plywood fence. Now, this was interesting. You can't really tell from the picture, but he has pinned it right here. Yeah. He has pinned it right here. And then I thought this was great. So this works for me really, really well. When you would think like, oh, I need to move the fence back when I need to cut something bigger or whatever, you cut a groove in a different location. And what I found is you really don't. You just need to shift the fence in a certain direction. So that's why you pinned it on the end. If you shift the fence, well, it's a circle. It's a circle. So, you're getting farther away from the router bit, regardless of where, the fence is, right? So, and then he just clamps it on the side there. I do the exact same thing. So I had to include this Izzy Swan's best. And this,
pretty much free. I have that exact same router as well. And it's a Bosch router, and it comes with a few attachments. And you know, the not the plunge router base, but the fixed one, just screw it to the bottom, and it's got a little, you know, lever for fine adjustments, and it's actually right there. You can see it right there. And I just do that, and it goes up and down. I don't need anything fancy. I don't, you know, and it works. I do all my projects with it. So template routing. You know, sometimes I don't need the fence, so because it's got a, you know, little bearing at the top of the router bit. So I just move the fence out of the way entirely and go to town. All right, this is a more recent video that he put out. You can see 6 years later, he's still at it. This was 7 months ago. And so there's been a big rise of the Festool domino, right? It's a very expensive machine. Everybody on YouTube is using it, and it seems as though everybody's apologizing for using it in their YouTube videos because they know how expensive it is, right? It starts to become unattainable at some point when you're seeing your favorite person building something and they whip that thing out and they go, bam, bam, it's that easy. And you're going, no, it's not. I need 30 more minutes of explanation, please. And I need you to do it by hand, or I need you to use something that I have. And so what he did is he kind of accepted the challenge and he built his own slot mortiser. And you can see it's just plywood. There's some acrylic in there, which I think might just be a chip shield at this point, or like a backer so that your piece of wood doesn't fall off. And he's using some mechanisms. I can play the video later. I don't want to bore anybody, but you can see his hands right here. He is totally away from this machine. If it blows up, he's totally out of the way. He's manipulating this router by just these two handles over here. So he moves it this way, and the router comes in and out. He moves the other handle this way, and the router goes right to left to right, whichever direction. And so I go home, watch the video. It's amazing. And his claim to fame is that he essentially made the Festool domino for $87, which is, I just think is incredible. And it goes to show you what I'm kind of like the theme of tonight, which is you don't have to spend a whole lot of money. You can build these things yourself. This is an extreme case. You know, maybe this would take you 6 months to build. Maybe not. Maybe it would be faster. But you're going to learn a whole lot while you're doing it. And you're going to save a whole lot at the same time, financially. And then, so the question might be, oh, well, you know, Festool makes dominoes, the little floating tenon that is, you know, what am I going to do? So he pointed out that you can make your own dominoes using this. I think this is the Rockler one. There are others, but the one I have pictured here is the beadlock tenon router bit. So you just buy that bit. I think it was like $20, something like that. Maybe 25. I can't remember off the top of my head. But and you just take a piece of wood, you know. There's your tenon, right? And you just run it along the this router bit, and it cuts the grooves for the glue, and it fits right in there. Yeah. Super easy. All right. Next one of my absolute favorites. I meet somebody every once in a while that knows who this is. He's a Japanese YouTuber. And God, he just makes the coolest stuff. So JSK Kubu. So as I have it there, JSK actually kind of stands for Jusaku Kubu. Jusaku Kubu. And I thought, oh, that's a cool name. Ooh. It just means DIY. Oh. That's all it means. It's the Japanese version of DIY, and then Kabuku is workshop. So sounds a lot cooler when you say it the Japanese way. Oh man, he's got the coolest thing. So it was really hard to pick something that I like, one thing of his that I really wanted to showcase. So I just decided to pick something. And so this is a really cool one. This is a hand drill. And this one machine, you can see the hand drill right here. This one machine is running essentially made entirely out of plywood, a little bit of metal, you can see there, and a motor. But he's got a hand drill, right? And so he locks the hand drill engaged, right? And he's got a little turn on, turn off button. So there's a few electronics involved there too. But the idea is with a hand drill and some plywood, you can make yourself these 6 machines. Now, do all of them work as well as a drill press, or do they work as well as a fully fledged drum sander? No, right? But the whole point is that you've made something a fit for purpose. And I like that term, fit for purpose, because maybe you don't need a drum sander. Maybe you just needed that one time that you're making that cutting board, and then you're never going to make a cutting board again. That might be the case, right? So you can see here, he's got a drill press, a disc sander, a drum sander, a drill sander, and a wood lathe all in one. And before you say, okay, that wood lathe, give me you're kidding me, right? I saw him use it. It's pretty cool. It worked. Now, are you going to turn a tree trunk with it? No. But again, it's fit for purpose. I just love everything this guy does. So I saw his YouTube channel started slowing down a little bit, and I got really nervous, but he has posted some stuff recently. So, all right, this is another one. So this is a Panta router. I'm sure most people are familiar with the Panta router, but the idea is that you have a template that you are running the machine against, and it is cutting that, whatever that form is, into the wood. This is used a lot for mortise and tenon. So you can think of the Festool replace slot mortiser, right? That's just cutting the domino mortise. This is cutting the tenon and the mortise to fit together. And it has the tolerance to essentially make them exact. And so it was hard to show these in pictures. Please go look at the video. It's amazing. It's linked in the, I can send this out, or Terry can send this out. But the idea, you can see, this is how it works. This is actually the template right here. And so this is the pin. Yeah, pin. Yeah, something like that. I don't know the word, but he's running it around that piece of wood. I think in this case, he's actually running it on the inside of that piece of wood to make the mortise. And the outside of the piece of wood is to make the tenon. And so it just rides along and creates this. I think these are so cool. As you can see here, the name brand. So Panta Router is a name brand, and that will run you $1,400 to $2,500 depending on what version and what bundle you get. And so I just think this is amazing. I don't know how much it cost him. He didn't say. There is a lot more engineering in this version than you see in Izzy's, because he's clearly an engineer, and he's got a lot of tolerances. Like you can see here, he's using a gauge to be very precise in the measurements he does in the cuts he makes. And you can actually see that in the middle picture here. This is the bottom of the router. You see it here. This is essentially the carriage of the router that's moving as you cut it. Oops. Okay, I think that was it. Yes. Okay. Questions, thoughts, opinions? Yeah. And they've been around a long time. There's a lot of people on YouTube, as we've said many times, that aren't really much worth. But those guys have been around a long time, and I think they've proven their usefulness. Good editing and stuff. Good editing, good ideas. A little bit of a tangent, but I saw a YouTube. One of the people on YouTube put up a poll
And I thought it was an interesting poll. It said, this particular person, I can't remember exactly who it was. They said, would you, of the 4 choices, which one would you like to see more of? It was, instruction videos. There's a few other options. And then another option was inspirational projects. You're not necessarily going to build this, but it's just to generate ideas. And so I clicked on that one because that's what I like to do when I go on YouTube. The jigs, obviously, you're looking for a purpose, but some of the other ones like Blacktail Studios, I know you've mentioned that, and a few of those others. Am I going to build a $16,000 epoxy table? Probably not. But the way he goes about it, the process in learning it, that's why I watch most of those. So I just found that to be an interesting fact. Sorry for the tangent. All right, into the challenge. Get your thinking caps on. Yes. Oh, yeah, me. Okay, first one. It could be easy, could be not. Not a router sled.
Vodka.
A what? That's it. That's exactly it. So this is a chainsaw cradle. This is a chainsaw cradle for a log. So this took me 10 minutes to make. Yeah, this is a 2x4. I essentially just cut this might be a 45-degree angle. I can't remember. And it's actually out of one piece of wood. So I cut it, and you can tell these here are also 45 degrees. Those don't do anything. I just wanted to cut them all out of one piece of wood. Yeah. So I made it out of one piece of wood, and I cut it 4 times or 3 times, and then just nailed it together. Yeah. So funny story about this one really quickly. I built this for my dad. He just got a new chainsaw. Bless his heart, he has no idea how to use it. I don't have one, and I don't know how to use it either, I'll be honest. But I'm learning. And so I brought this to his house to cut up logs, and very first cut, right? So I was cutting a few throughout the day. My brother-in-law cutting a few today. He steps up, he gets the chainsaw, he goes to cut. He's doing good. He's doing fine. He makes this cut right here, right into the screw. That's a $10 sharpening the blade. We're done for the rest of the day. He would kill me if I told us. If you knew that. All right. Next was this. No. Next was Aaron. Help me out. He's not sharing the. Don't share it for a second. I gotta remember what.
Yeah, big win the challenge.
Okay, this one's one of my favorites. This one's one of my favorites. What is it? Nope. Nope. This one's tough. I got hints, so.
Which stick finger along the rabbit?
Nope. Minor cases? Like lengths of boards? Nope. Aaron, give me the first hint.
Storage function.
All right, these hints are a little cryptic, so you guys won't get it right away.
First hint is, I do not recommend eating at this table.
Okay. Do not recommend eating at this table. The hints get easier.
I hope so.
All right, hit us with another one there. There's only 3.
Make sure you're sledding at the right angle. in quotation, right?
So these are, fight each other?
No, these are totally separate. That's a good question.
Cross cut swing?
One would be, excuse me, we make leg swing. Yeah.
No, that's a good question. This and this, they're not parallel at all. This doesn't matter. Question?
Does it stop on a cross cut swing?
No.
Okay, hit number 3.
Yeah, number 3.
The inside corner split?
The recut method requires.
Recut method requires. I'm so glad you said that because I'll be talking about the free cut method later today.
I do both.
Okay, somebody said it over here, cross-cut sled.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I'll be demonstrating exactly how this works later, but this is used in the 3-cut method. You may have heard of the 5-cut method to square up a table saw sled. And so I'll be demonstrating exactly what that is. I call this one, what is it? Click the next thing. Squaring jig.
Squaring gauge.
Squaring gauge, yeah. And why do I have 2 of them? Well, that's a great question.
What do you have to do?
Great question. So glad you asked. I made this one. I used this one to square the table saw sled I have. I'll show in a minute. And then I decided I was going to do this demonstration, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. So I made this one, which I've never used. I have absolutely no need for it. And then I found this one yesterday. So I'll show you exactly how that works.
If you want to raffle off one, you don't use.
Sure. If you want one, if you see the 3-cut method and you like it and you want it, it's yours. All right, who got the first? You got the first one, Scott. That's a gift card. And yeah, maybe you can give it away. You can give it away. Whomever you deem most appropriate. All right, last one.
Are those gift cards like a couple $100?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You can tell I'm rolling in it, right?
Yeah, right.
Make everything out of scrap wood.
Yeah, it says $300.
All right. The last one is this one. Now I don't think I can. Okay. Nobody can get this. So whoever gets the closest, we have a donated router jig template.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect themed prize. No. The prize doesn't have anything to do with this. Okay, hit it. I think we're just gonna have to jump right into this. Before we go too far. Some of these jigs I saw on the internet, I reproduced. They're not my creation. This one, totally out of my brain. So you're getting some insight into how my brain works.
Visual sharpening.
No. I like that where you're going. No, not right, but. All right, so this is leather or rubber. This is it's rubber. This is bicycle tire. Okay. No, it doesn't have anything to do with your bicycle. All right, let's go.
Something to do with gal.
I like where you're going with that, but no. Here's part of a hint. I mean, it's not really that big of a hint, but that's how you use it. It lays on the table.
Really?
So you don't have to hold it?
No. All right. Give us a hint, Aaron.
Rabbit maker?
Mm-mm.
Needle maker? Used when the job is down to the wire.
Used when the job is down to the wire. My wife helped me come up with this.
You roll wire up there?
So far, you're the closest. Nope. Hit us with another hint.
Outlet all cutter. Sometimes getting snippy is necessary.
Wire cutting jig.
It is a wire cutting jig. Good job. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to explain. But first, good job. Okay, so I had a particular job.
Big
that I-
wire or small? Any
Small. Oh, yeah, I guess any. I had a particular job I needed to cut a lot of wire. And this is totally out of my brain. I was gonna put this, if nobody got it. Pull these out. The handle fits in this area here. Okay, the scissor part, whatever you call this, fits directly in between these two pieces of wood. Put it on the table. You feed the wire in. Sorry, you can't see that. You feed the wire in this side. Pull the handle up. You put the right amount in. I had some marks on this side.
Was it real short wire? You're doing real short wire?
Yeah. Yeah. This particular, I needed short wire. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a one-off. What the hell are you going to use this for? But it helped tremendously because you know what the alternative was? Snip. Snip. Oh, that's too long. Snip. That's too short. Snip. Right. And when you put that wire in there and you're getting your hands all tight like this, you're not going to cut the wire. You need your hand back here. But then you want to be up here like this.
How big a wire were you at?
Oh man. I forgot the gauge. I think it was like 26 gauge wire.
Oh, real fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. But this cut really well. I've used this for a number of other things. Not this, but I've used this for a number of other things, and it cuts a lot. It's really nice. All right, cool. Thank you for appeasing me on that. All right, Aaron, if you want to pull the presentation back up, if you would. All right. No, you're good. All right, so now we'll get into the jigs. I'm going to try to go through these. We're at 8 o'clock, so I think we're good on time, but there's a few people that have other jigs, so I'm going to try to go a little fast. Please stop me if you have questions, though. That's the whole point. I talked about this. Oops. I talked this already, but pros and cons, right? So pro of using a homemade jig versus going out and buying that jig from the store. So it's inexpensive, obviously. We all know that. I mean, I know plywood is expensive, but we all have scraps, right? And that's what I mainly make. I don't go out and buy a sheet of plywood to make jigs. I just use the scrap that I have left over for making prototypes or whatever. It's sacrificial. So in the process of using the jig, you may actually destroy it, which if you only need it once is fine. It's disposable. So this is the big question on space. I've heard that from a few people today. Where the hell do you put all these things? Well, sometimes they're disposable, right? Sometimes you use it once, you use it for a particular project. You can afford to throw it away because it's a scrap piece of wood anyway. But we don't throw away scraps anyway. So it's fit for purpose. So that was something I mentioned earlier, fit for purpose. And it's fast. You can put them together really fast. You're in the moment. Like I said a moment ago, I'm in a project. I'm about to make a cut. And I just need that cut to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, it's not all going to line up. So let me go make a jig real quick and get that done. That happens constantly with me. I don't know about you guys, but it happens all the time with me. Some of the cons, lower accuracy tolerance. I'm thinking of the woodpecker, right? Woodpecker, it's all about accuracy, right? I'm not getting, and their tolerances, Terry could probably tell us what their tolerances are. I'm not getting anywhere close to that level of tolerance with my jigs. Disposable, what that? more cost. Woodpecker is extremely expensive. Disposable, I mean, there is an element here that maybe it's not economical to make stuff out of plywood and throw it away. Maybe it's not environmentally friendly, but you have to weigh it, right? It does require effort. So you could get in the car and drive to the store. You don't have to do that these days. You can go online, you can order it, and it can show up, and you don't even blink an eye, right? But in this case, you do have to put some effort into it. Some of these take 5 minutes, some of these take hours. It just depends on what you're willing to invest. Another one I really like, they're not pretty. This is stuff that looks like a hardware store vomited. So they're not the prettiest things in the world, but I don't really necessarily need them to be pretty. They're functional. Whereas woodpeckers, I'm picking on them, but there are others that they are very pretty, especially the red annealed steel, aluminum, whatever it is. And then they have a shorter lifespan. So it goes with the sacrificial. It may be sacrificial, so you can make that cut and you don't have to, oh, is it going to hit the thing? But on the other side, maybe if you make that cut, it'll fall apart sooner, or maybe it'll lose the tolerance, the accuracy tolerance over time. Whereas that newer, that brand new band, $150, whatever it is, it's not, it's going to last. Yeah, absolutely. That exactly. So I made this quick little diagram. I mean, I know I'm getting way in the weeds here, but the idea here is that homemade, you have very little cost. You have marginal quality, somewhere in the middle. Could be really high if you're really good at it. Could be really low if you're really bad at it. But it requires a lot more time. Whereas you go out and buy it, price essentially no time. But high cost, but you get the high quality, high accuracy along with it. So you got to balance. Does it make sense to buy? Does it make sense to make it? That might be true for a lot of things in this world. Yeah. Everything's relative too. If you're a billionaire, doesn't even matter, right? Yeah. All right. Getting into the good stuff. Okay, so I didn't realize I did this one first, but we'll run with it. Who has one of these? A lot of people. Okay.
BSK made one.
Yeah. So I like this thing. It's very useful. It's $88 new. I got this one actually just like 2 weeks ago from an estate sale for $50. I think it was like maybe 55, something like that. So, I spent $55 on it. Yes. So that's a good question. For those people who don't know what this is a micro jig gripper. And so when you're at the table saw and you need to push something through, you've got your push stick, your normal push stick, plastic one. This one it does 1,000 other things, and some of them I don't even believe. I saw, because I bought the one that's got even more attachments, and I'm like, it said it could joint thing. I'm not confident. I need to see a video. But anyway, as you're pushing, you can push it down on the piece of wood, and as you're pushing it through, you can actually put your hand all the way over the blade while keeping it safe, because the blade is traveling between here, and you've got a lot of stuff in between those two things. It also has a support. So if you loosen this side, it's like an infomercial at this point. You can have the stability as you're pushing on a piece of wood, so that you don't go this way or that way.
It's good for small pieces.
Good for small pieces, exactly. So you'll see that this side, I think, is 1/8 of an inch, and this side is this is 1/4 of an inch, and this side 1/2 inch. So agreed, totally agreed, John. For small parts, if you flip this around on the inside, put this on the other side of the tool, you can cut the really tiny pieces that you Okay, $88 for the billionaire. He doesn't care. Right? She doesn't care.
They hold their price, they don't go on sale.
Did the exact same thing. Out of wood.
Izzy's done those things too.
It doesn't. So I just made this. I thought of a project. I thought that's a cool project I could do for this presentation. And I said, this is an easy one. I could do this one. This took me an hour. It really is not a whole lot of time. You see this little thing fell out. The reason it fell out is because I lost the little washer on the inside so I couldn't find another one really quickly. But the idea is you just have a little nut on the inside and it screws in, just like on this side. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is just like this. You got the knob here so that if you loosen this, you can move these around however, wherever your table saw blade is going to be. So does the exact same thing. This cost me pennies. And
Most expensive was the knobs.
I had the knobs. Garage sales are great, right? People are getting rid of crap. There's a little box of knobs. They're like, take it. I don't want that thing. So, they're willing to get rid of it. They want to get the hell out of there. So these knobs are free. The plywood, again, plywood wasn't free, but they're offcuts. The handle is just 2 laminated pieces of plywood for thickness. And I just cut it all out on the bandsaw. And on the high end, $5, maybe less. So, thank you. That was the question I was getting back to. So I made this really quickly, but I thought about theoretically some spray rubber, could do that. I also thought, I don't know how well this would work, but bicycle tire. We all have a flat, every once in a while with our bicycle. These really help. I'll show you a different way in a minute. You could use that on there. These have a little bit of a coating on them, so they don't hear very well. But something similar, there's probably something rubber out there. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm sure that you can get those for real cheap. Those like rolls of non-skid stuff. Okay. So again, the point is I made that very quickly, very cheaply, and it essentially does the same purpose. Might need to pay a little bit more for some spray rubber or something rubber, but at the end of the day, it's not $88. But again, right, the whole point is I'm trying to steer you guys. I've got an agenda, right? I'm trying to steer you towards cheap, make it by yourself. But there is definitely an argument to be made. This may be safer. This may be more reliable, might last longer. You make your own decision.
Maybe you didn't do something later.
Mine doesn't look pretty. Mine's not neon yellow, so you can't find it in the wood shop when you've lost it. Yeah. That's okay. Sorry. Moving on in. Okay, so I got a lot to get through. Please stop me. I actually have more than what's on the screen, which is crazy. So please feel free to stop me. I still do have another demo to get through, so I'm just gonna fly through these. You saw the chainsaw cradle. I love that thing. Took me 2 minutes to make. Everybody's familiar with the crosscut sled. They're a dime a dozen. The only point I'll make here is I like the MDF on the bottom. It's flatter, in my opinion, more accurate. I also, and this may not apply to many people, I also like long runners. You might be thinking like, Jesus Christ, some seriously long runners. There's a lot of run up, in feed, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of run up on a saw stop. Mine is a job site saw. I do everything on a job site saw, and it's real short. We're talking less than 6 inches between the start of the table and the blade. So this lets me, if I've got something, it might not be the most safe, but let's not worry about that. If I got something that's long and I really got to get back there, I can put it in the grooves and ride it along even before this touches this part actually meets the table. So this helps me. Maybe not for everybody, but it helps me. Okay, along those lines, actually, I'll put this one up here. Along these lines, this cuts straight lines, right? The whole point of it is to cut 90-degree angles perfectly. Well, sometimes you need to cut 45-degree angles. So here's a piece of wood that's cut to a 45-degree angle. Oh, I'm not being shown, but you can kind of see it there, right? If I got a small piece, I can put it right here and cut that 45-degree angle right there. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit smaller. So I've done this. Forgive me, but I've done this. Put it all the way out there, and somehow, you know, the angle works out where I can. This is probably just, I've made a couple of these, so this might not be the one I cut this one all the way out here with, but I've done it. All right. This one's one of my favorites. For the longest time, I did not have a jointer. This is primarily for me a jointing sled. So you're on the table saw. Imagine this is a table saw. The fence is on this side. You have a piece of wood here. Doesn't matter what the shape of the piece of wood is. I mean, it's got to be, you know, a piece of wood. It's got to be straight, right? But it doesn't have to be flush on either side. You put that piece of wood as close as you can on this side. You lock it in there with those clamps, and then you're running on the table sled on this side of the fence, and this side is on the blade. You are making that side of the piece of wood straight. You're jointing it essentially, right? Doesn't matter what this side of the piece of wood looks like because it's up against this thing. You are making one flat side, one straight side, and you know it's straight because you're running it against the fence, and the fence is the straight part, right? So you're essentially mirroring the fence on the other side of the piece of wood.
But it's because it has an odd shape on the other, you just can't use the fence.
Exactly. Yes. Doesn't matter. It could be all jacked up on this side. And then when you're done with this, you take it out of this jig, you turn it around, and you do the other side on the table saw.
Just using the fence.
Just using the fence. Exactly. Because that side is now straight, and you're just mirroring it on the other side of the board when you send it through there. That's how I use this primarily, but other people use this as a tenon jig. I'm sorry, not a tenon jig, a tapering jig. Tapering jig. So instead of, you know, trying to get this as straight as possible, put a piece of wood in there. And you put it at an angle like that, or vice versa, you might do it that way. And you run it on the table saw, and it's going to cut this side. It's still going to cut it straight, but it's going to cut it at an angle relative to this side of the wood. And then there's a few different ways you can do it, but you can also just rotate the piece of wood. You rotate it. Maybe you save your offcut. You can put that back on there to cut the other side. I won't get into all that, but this is a really useful piece. What does that give you, up to about a 10-degree? It's a good question. If you don't know off the top of your, should have a 10-degree. I have a jig for that. Yeah, it gets a little jammed up because these it has a certain tolerance, but theoretically you could slot one of these guys a little bit more and get a pretty good. Exactly.
And micro jig makes a lot of those type things.
Well, and you know, I don't know, like this would, for me, it'd be like table legs. You're gonna make a table leg that deep, tapered, and probably not, right? And it's on both sides, right? So you you double up the angle.
Right,
Yes.
sure. You don't have a cord on it, no more than a quarter inch up. You got a cup on it, even though you put down your clamps, sometimes the saw blade going through, it's gonna lift up and it will break those clamps that you have on the side. No
Yep.
matter how you got them screwed on.
That's fair.
I've learned that.
That's fair. Another, what's the word? Limitation of this. It's only gonna cut something this long, right? So, you know, if you get something longer than that, you gotta get a jointer.
Or use a clamp a board to it and run a saw across it.
Yeah. All right, you know, I'm picking it up. This looks like a piece of board with a little thing attached at the end. This is a planer sled. Good job. Glad I didn't pick that one. So. This is a planer sled. So whomever's not familiar, you can flatten the face of a piece of wood using this, so that you don't have a jointer where you would go joint the face of it. You can use this. The piece of wood sits here, and you can send it through.
The thickness planer.
Thickness planer, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can also cut thinner stock than your planer
Will do without.
That's a good point. Absolutely. No, you are dealing sometimes with a cup board or a warped board, and this also helps with that. I keep a lot of these little things around. This is a scrap. You can see the kind of bevel on there. You just shim it up. If it's cupped in the middle, you shim it right there in the middle. And you put another one on this side. And then when the planer runs over it, it can't push the wood down. There's something there blocking it. I've used this so many times. It has been helpful time. Again, little piece of wood, not much of anything, but it will stop you. You got especially what I have is a little bit of warp where the whole board is flat except for this corner. And that corner is just kicking up a little bit. So I would just put that piece of wood under it. And when I throw it in the planer, it takes a full pass over all of it.
Back being mashed down.
And then you take it off, send it through the opposite way, and you have a flat board, two parallel sides. Yep.
The other reason to do this is, so I actually had my son planing down some boards this weekend, and he's never run anything. He was just operating the planer. I was off doing other things. He kept trying to run the board through the thickness planer, and he said, "Dad, this is just taking me forever." I came back, 20 minutes later, he was working on the second board. Like, you're killing me, sons. And it turned out that the bottom side of it was just so rough that he couldn't get it to push through the planer. And he thought it was the blade, and he was like, "You got to change these blades." It was the friction on the bottom. This takes care of that. I make one, once you get bigger, I make one of these that actually has 2 pieces of plywood, and it's an 8-foot long thing, 12 inches wide, so it goes through my planer. And I space another piece of plywood between them because the stiffness and flatness of these 2 boards is dependent. It's the cube of the thickness. So you double the thickness, you get 4 times as much stiffness strength. And so as you get bigger, you can stack them up thicker and make a really nice.
Last thing I'll say on this is I've found the smaller the board, the more likely the board is to get taken away by the planer. And what I mean by that is as you're pushing this through, this stop is making sure it actually goes in the planer, it doesn't come out the back. But the planer sometimes takes it from the board and starts eating it up that way. And so I will put a little stop block at the front. So if my board is this long, pull a stop block there, and it stops the planer from taking it away. This is kind of a slick surface, and it'll take it away.
I was gonna say the same thing. When you do the planer sled like that, see the little lip end, put that into the planer first. You don't have to worry about having it in the back.
Right.
Because the way the rollers are going, it's pushing it. So what happens if you put it in first, it will never move.
I'm gonna try to pick up the space here. This is a dado, dado sled. So you can see it's a little bit bigger. This is a 1/2 inch, but you could make it whatever. And it is meant, I actually brought a piece for demonstration. It's something I made using that. You run it through and you can cut your box joints out. I have not yet made this into a true box joint cutter because I don't have the key that goes in there. I did this one by eye. Not my best. You see that I have some cedar inserts right here. It's just for tear out reduction. So you can see I cut something up to this height, but I cut most of my stuff down to this level. So I just replaced it with some cedar, so that, you know, it just protects it from tear out. Okay. This is the same thing. This is the same thing, but it actually rides in the slot. Rides in the slot like this, and square, this square angle. I might need to cut. Maybe I'm making a lap joint. Lap joint is a good example where I'm going to cut off some pieces here, and maybe I'll flip it. Use this for tenon as well. Maybe not. That reminds me. I forgot my actual tenon jig in the car. That's okay. If we have time. Okay. Circle cutting jig for a router. This is a board. I mean, it's really not much of anything. I use the hole saw to make this hole. This is where the router goes through. I cut some recessed holes. This is where you screw in the router plate, whatever you call it, yeah, which holds the router. And all these little holes right here were for the nail. And so I just measure from there's probably an easier way to do this, but I measure from the end of the router bit to wherever the diameter, half the, I guess the radius, right? Put in a nail, and then hammer that nail into whatever I'm working with and cut it. Works really good. I could, if I wanted to, I could put a little knob on this side to make it easier to turn. I guess it would be this side, but anyway. This works really good. I've done a lot of work with this. This is another one out of my brain.
Mini log.
Yeah. Branch. No. This is this is very specific, but I've actually used it a lot. This is to cut dowels in half. So if you put them together, this is for not the table saw, but the bandsaw. That one's still too tight, but you can imagine there's a piece of wood on there, and you can cut a dowel in half. You could also cut a piece of wood triangularly as well. So you have a square piece of wood that you put in here, and you can cut 2 triangles out of it. Again, I don't know what I use this for, but I've used it many times. Yeah. So that's a good question. So notice there's screws here. I just take the screw out, twist it out, put the blade in, put it back, and you can actually see it would go this way because that's where the bandsaw blade, ends, essentially. Similarly, while we're talking about bandsaw blades, I got a bandsaw blade router sled. This particular bandsaw is very small, which is why you see something small, but it has a miter slot, so this goes in that miter slot. It's not accurate, right? This is not, the most accurate thing in the world, but if I need to cut dowels crossways, this is really simple. Just put a dowel right there, cut it to length. Okay, while we're talking about dowels, I got, I can connect all these things. All right, so this is a dowel. I had a project where I needed to cut this dowel for some feet. And I thought, oh my God, how am I gonna cut a dowel on my miter saw at a 45-degree angle? I don't know if it's 45, some 30, maybe it's 30. How am I gonna do it? I'm gonna start cutting it and it's gonna start rotating and we're gonna have bad news. It might be bad for me, or it's definitely gonna be bad for the cut. So what did I do? Took me 2 seconds to think of this. I cut a 45-degree angle from a 2x4 and I glued it to the side of the dowel. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, if you glued it to the side of the dowel, now it's stuck on there. Now you've got a dowel with this full piece of wood stuck to it. Well, I've saved this just to show you. Blue tape and CA glue. And I glued it. 5 seconds later, I was ready to go. And so, so this is a way to just save the angle on the miter saw. Put it up there, cut that 45 or 30 degree, whatever it was. And I don't need this. It's a one-time thing. But if I didn't use it, I was either going to be unsafe or I wasn't going to get my desired result. About this one because it's funny. How many people have ever needed a straight edge and don't have a track saw? I used this the other day with my circular saw to cut to rip mill some lumber essentially. I don't have a track saw, which JSK has a great track saw that he makes. I just clamp on both sides and run the circular saw right along this.
Also used for gluing up like your table saw sled to keep your back runners straight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna save the turning stuff. This one's kind of a cool idea. So this one is for gluing. This is essentially a glue-up panel. So I have a couple pieces of wood. It was actually in this configuration. That's why the tape looks like that. A few pieces of wood I needed to glue and clamp at the same time. And so I laid them out, put the glue on them. I just have these here and I ran the clamp from the end of the piece of wood. And this is where I clamped it on the other side. So I'm clamping it all in place and the tape is for glue. When I pull the thing off, the glue is still there. It's not all caked on. And it also doesn't adhere to the piece of wood. It should be. So it stays flat and it gets the right dimensions that I need. This I use quite often because this is for planters. And I make a lot of planters. So it might just look like a one-off thing, but I use it quite a bit. We talked, someone, I think you said push sticks earlier. I don't like those push sticks, the plastic ones. Stumpy Nubs does a good video on that, where the dangers of using those kinds, because they're plastic, they can break. And when they break, your hand keeps going, right? That's just one reason. This is just a spare piece of wood. I laminated 1/4 inch pieces of wood together, make a 1/2 inch one. And so I can cut on the table saw up to a 1/2 inch. And there's a little lip on there at the bottom to hold on to the wood. So if I'm pushing this piece of wood through, it's locked in there. And the best part about, the reason I don't like those kind of push sticks, the plastic ones where you're pushing like this, right? Where's all the pressure over here? Because the kickback, right, is going to end up over here. The kickback's not going to be back here. So although I have that little notch that pushes the thing forward, I could be pushing the thing forward and it could be going like this at the same time and become part of my head. So this applies pressure down here where the board is going to want to come up or come that way, pushing down like that. I mean, I think most of you knew that already, but I thought I might as well point it out. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm gonna pause it. Bicycle tubes, because you asked. I find bicycle tubes to be very useful, and specifically with clamps. I didn't bring a cut one. You can see I already used it here, but that's a different application. Rockler. They might have them here too, but Rockler loves to advertise their band clamps. Yes, you can make a pair. You've already got a clamp and you got some leftover bicycle tube. Just cut it, put it on the end, put it on the end there, and you have a band clamp. I find that to be very useful. Okay. I'd love to talk to you guys about the templates. I'm trying to move it along a little faster. I do want to show you that 3-cut method. These are just templates. You can come up and look at them. You know, you guys know what templates are, right? But they're jigs, too, in my opinion. What's the definition, right? And so Larry asked a question, so I'm going to definitely answer it now. Although I have to kind of move on. How did I get this circular? So it's a very good question. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I started out by making it, you know, I'm scribing a circle with a compass, cutting to that circle, and then sanding it with a belt sander, or I used the sanding attachment on my drill press. But this wasn't perfect. It wasn't quite the way I wanted it. So what did I do? I put this on the lathe. I put this on the lathe. I put this, you actually can tell that's where the this whatever it's called, spur stock, yeah, was right there. And I put something, I jammed it on there with something, and then I just got it treated up so that it was running straight. It's like a 3-second little shoot, and it was perfectly circular, excuse me. So that's why I said yes and no. These I did not make. This is from the Bob Fensky. He made these. I don't know how he made them, of course, but they come in handy.
I think most of the stuff was bought.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. That pretty much covers it.
You did give a transfer.
Yeah.
You use it just
Oh, this is a fun one. Made this. This is definitely one where I drew it on a piece of plywood. I cut it out and sanded to the line, and I made this. So that's a little tracker. It's actually to scale, 7330 high proper tracker. So you can tell came right from that.
And 2x4?
No, this is red oak. I don't know why I use it. So the wheels came from I made on the lathe. Okay, let's move on. We can come back if we need to. I can always answer questions. You want to throw the thing up? I think the next. So I have some more ideas. So these are just more ideas of things you can make. I don't have those things here. One of them we talked about is a circular saw guide. So you can make essentially a long track saw, essentially. It's very easy to make a track saw out of some plywood. How long is it going to last? We already talked about. And there's so many of these. These are just some ideas I came up with in 20 minutes. All right. 3-cut method. All right. So some of you have heard the 5-cut method. This is the 3-cut method. I really like this one. Here are the instructions, but I'm going to go over it right now. And what's this? My pencil. This is all you need. Okay. Now, my table saw sled does not fit on here, so you have to use what your imagination. It fits my slots, actually, sorry. But it doesn't fit the slots on this table. So I'm not actually gonna do anything right now. I'm not gonna start this off. I'd be way too loud. But I'm just gonna show you. So you have, you're building your sled, right? And you want to square this portion of that. So that when you make the cut, they're square as well, right? So, thank you, Tim. So what do? You build it, you pin it, so you pin one side semi-permanently, and you leave the other side not undone, but you fix it somehow. So it might be a screw that you put in there that you can release later. But the idea is that you're going to get as close to square using a square as possible. So you may have a combination square that you put right here, and you try to square it up with the line, you know, with an actual square. And that'll get you pretty close, but it's not going to get you all the way. There's some tolerance there that it's not, you know, you're not going to be perfect. So you get there the rest of the way, like I said, permanently fixing one side, leaving the other side somewhat free, but you pick an angle, you, like you said, you square it, you drill a hole in from the bottom. You can see that here, like one of these. I don't know exactly which side I worked on, but one of these was fixed and the other one, you know, was temporary. And so pre-cut method is really easy. You take a piece of plywood, you make your first cut. Doesn't really matter what face you use, but you reference this, you make your first cut. You make a mark on that. Maybe you put a 0, maybe you say, you know, this side. Somehow you make sure that you're referencing this. Okay, then you rotate it 90 degrees. So remember, we just cut it this way. This is the side we just cut. We're rotating it 90 degrees. So that side that you now reference is against the tables, the fence, right? You run this side through the blade, through the table saw. Okay, so now we know that this is 90 degrees. And here's the trick. You flip it. You don't keep rotating. You flip it 180 degrees and you cut this side. Always keeping that reference on this side of the table. Okay, so when you're done, if you are dead on accurate, this should be a right angle, this should be a right angle, but more importantly, the distance between these two sides, essentially this side, the distance of this side, and the distance of this side should be exactly the same. And that's where this comes in. You take your very simple, doesn't matter how square this is or how square this is, because it's all referential. You measure like this. You put a little mark. Yeah, put a little mark. This, and you could use a tape measure, but you're not going to get that level of accuracy, right? So you make a little mark. Not see that, but you made a little mark there. Okay, did I do that side? Hopefully. Yeah, and then just do the exact same thing on the other side. And you make a mark. And so this one's actually perfect, but if they are the same mark, you have a perfectly square. If they are off, which you can't see it, but if they're off by just a smidge, that's double the correction you need to make.
And how you measure that?
You do it again.
Oh,
so do it again. You make a slight modification here. Sure. Maybe it's a 6, 7, 6. It's a 3 multiple one. You make a slight adjustment, whatever you think is accurate. You pin it again. You just take the same piece of wood and cut it slightly smaller. That's how you do it. Until those, like Bob said, those two lines are the exact same line on your stick. Yes.
How would you know whether to move, which direction to go here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you know that you do have that reference side, right? So you know the reference. So you do want to keep that in mind. So if let's say if this edge is wider, meaning the line that you made is further down the stick, if you're doing it this way, than it is that way, then you know that your fence needs to come this way, and vice versa. If this is smaller and you cut your or you strike the line and it's further this way, you know you need to move your fence back this way. It's just small, minute changes until you got it perfect. Okay, any questions?
If it's wider, it's push up on it. If you're slower, then you can pull down on it.
Yes, that's exactly right. All right. All right. Yeah. So please, I'm happy to answer more questions later about any of this stuff. I don't have time, which is a good thing. I want you guys to share now. So I know Jim has a few, so some other people have their hands up. So your turn now. Jim, you want to go first?
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
Discs. It just screws in the truck and I write down what the grid is. This is just PSA stuff that will, peel right off and I can replace it, when I'm done. Those of you that have done bottle stoppers, for example, kind of know what this is, where you just screw it into the headstock and then you drill your hole in your block and you screw it on here and then you turn the bottle stopper. This is the same thing. I just, before you spend money on buying this, just made one of these. Again, same thing, drill the hole, same, bolt size. This mounts on my, jaws, and then you can use that as a stopper. I did a lot of eggs for my mother-in-law a while back. So I needed a way to hold the egg. So this is just PVC pipe sliced up there and then just use yeah, those things. And tighten it up as I need to put that on there. I hope this is not a one-off, but right now it's a one-off. This is what I used on the rocker, to splay the legs. All right. Yeah, they have to be a certain, uniform and they have to be a certain angle. So, this actually sets upside down. The rocker is upside down and I have the sleds are actually attached to the legs with a dowel. So I have the front legs set in place on the dowel, not glued, but just set in place on the dowel. And then this just slides between them and you slide it down. There's a, mark here. This is a center line. And that's got to line up with the center of the, seat, which is where I have, one of the, stretchers. So, and then that sets the legs in place. So, where to, attach them to the back legs. Next.
This is a little bit more complex than what he was showing.
mortising machine, you know that.
Climb your workbench like that. Put your piece in here, like this. This adjusts vertically so you can clamp it tight against the top. And this clamps it down. I have a router table, but I just found it kind of tedious and a lot of trial and error to get a mortise right. And you really can't see what you're doing because you're kind of working upside down. With this, you're working right side up. So you got your board clamped in there like that. Set your router depth. This one here, see, lets you slide just back and forth, so you can set it on the board. Once you've laid out your mortise, you set this so it's centered. Tighten that down. Then you put your router. Sits in here. You know the width is just exactly for your router, and you move this over and just pull your router bit over here to the end. Set your stop and tighten that down. Go over here. Set your stop. Tighten that one down, and away you go. And perfect mortises. And if you've got a lot to do, it's the same dimension. You can just whip them out in no time. You know, you just got a center line mark here. You might put a center line mark on your mortise, and away you go. I saw this pattern in, I believe it was Fine Woodworking. And I've got the plans if anybody's interested. It's about a day's worth. It takes you longer to gather up all the hardware than it does to make. But I use it all the time. It's really useful.
Because I'm president of the club. But anyway, I've gotten to the point where I make a lot of yarn bowls.
What?
Yarn bowl, which is basically just a bowl with a groove cut in the front of it. And years ago, when I started making research, was first thing you do is a coping saw. Well, when you're using a coping saw, then you're hitting the backside of the bowl and thinking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ding it up. Next person suggested, well, use a jigsaw. I'm thinking, okay, jigsaw is great, but then you got to make a curve. And by the time you get cut and you get down to here, this piece is vibrating back and forth, and you're thinking, when's it going to break? Well, somebody mentioned a jig where you have a pattern where you clamp it and follow it with the router. This jig was initially made for, I was making some bowls and I was looping multiple angles on the pieces to save wood. Come on. To where I want to double cut, I want to cut, 15-degree angle to get to the segment I want, but I want to tilt it. But when you do the tilt, you start losing your angle. And when you go to bring halves together, they don't come together perfectly. So I would glue the rings in two halves, and I had this rigged up to where I could put pieces into it, clamp it. I could take my router with the plunge router with a plastic base, and I could run it across there several times to get it flatter so I could get it together. Well, since then, now I take it and put my bowl inside. I figure out which side I want to cut the groove into. Inside. Now inside I've got lines. I have my center line, and I have lines 1 inch out so I can line it up quicker and easier. Once I get it set, I can turn it over. I have a board. All I did was I took the little plastic, you get the right angle, 45, 60, 30 angle, but you also get the French curve pieces in there. I used that and double stick taped it to the board. Carefully ran the router around it with the sleeve to cut it to where I could get the quarter round bit to it. Now I just take it and bolt this on here. And I screw it in place, but I've also got lines on here to where I can judge where the top of the hole is going to be, where the bottom of the slot's going to be. So I know I don't want to get it too close to the top because it's going to be too thin. I don't want to get too close to the bottom, which doesn't look good. So I can line it up, but I've got multiple holes where I can just screw it down in place, and I can just take the router, and just run it through, and done. And then after cutting it a few times, I finally decided, let's put a hole in there, put the vacuum cleaner in there, so it sucks the dust out. Especially when you get around to the front and all the dust is collecting, it's like, I can't get it to move, so we got a little smarter with it, so. But it works pretty good. Sorry? Thank you.
So they put a ball of yarn in there and they just pull it out of that.
Yeah. It dispenses the yarn slowly with that machine you're doing. I was quite surprised because I talked to a friend I hadn't talked to while he said, what's your number one selling item? I said, I'm not really sure. I think yarn books. I had the show is out. I had the book out of town by myself in the hotel. Started counting up. I was like, good God, it is yarn boy. I still don't know how many shows.
Good deal.
Mine's real simple. You know, I do a lot of cutting boards and I glue up a lot of panels. And to be able to hold the panels, to be able to better glue up, I only brought a couple of them. I put them on the table and I put the boards across the front of it. And then I take, of course, on my workbench is 6, I think it's 6 feet. Usually I'm making, if I make cutting boards, I'll make 3 cutting boards at the same time, same pattern. So it's at 60 inches worth of board out there. And I just run the boards across like this. And depending on, I have another one out here, I'll put 3 clamps down, hold everything together. And I can flip it upside down and put another set of clamps. So I have top and bottom. And then you just loosen up every once in a while to make sure that the clamps are buckled down onto the PVC pipe. This is just 2 PVC pipes with a couple 2x4s cut. And I made a couple of them. So I can do multiple ones on different parts of the table. After they're cut into the right sections, I usually put feet on the bottom of the cutting boards. So I made this little simple jig that fits on the corner, and I have it set at 1.5 or 2 1/4 inches, depending on what I'm using. If I'm using just a square edge around the side, I use the 1 1/4 inch because it seems to look the best. But if I've been starting now doing a 45-degree bevel table saw on the bottom of the boards to give it a little, so I don't have to put handles in them. Those 45s enough. They go up about, I'd say 70% from the bottom. So what happens is easier to grab, and people like them, and they're easy to do. So these are 2-inch PVC pipes, and I use them for not just cutting wire, anything I'm gluing, any panel I'm gluing up, because you want to have top and bottom pressure on the clamps. And I found out it's easier. So if you lay them down on the table, it's hard to pick up and then get everything to line up right. But if you raise them up, the bar clamps or my Bessie clamps fit right underneath them. And it's, I just put a piece of paper on my, on this, you see there's a lot of glue, and I'm not, I don't save, I'm not a thing. Glue is cheap. And so I just use a ink roller, put them up, and I just ink the whole size. And I don't care if there's too much, I put the boards together. I just do a little quick rub fit. A lot of it squeezes out. I let them sit for about 2 hours. Then I go back with I usually take 1 set of clamps off. I scrape the glue off with a paint scraper, put them back on, flip it over. Then once it's all that carded, I just put it to the side. It's because the Bessie clamps are light because they got flat edges. So you just sit them down and they're flat on the ground. So, and tabletops are that way too. I do the same thing. And I made a couple, actually this was a longer one. I was making a 54-inch wide circular dining room table for my wife. And I found out that if I'm gluing up something that big, these came in very handy instead of just laying them on a surface. And I used a big circle jig I made to cut because no one makes a 54. Everything is 48 or 52. And she wanted specific 54. So have to do a little bit extra jury rigging.
Good for everybody? All right. think,
Thank you, everybody, for bringing it in.
okay, so,
Just wanted to let you know, I was a little late coming in tonight. As you know, I've been pursuing funding for the bench brigade. I went to the Hampton Roads Council of Veterans Organization tonight and gave a presentation, explaining what we have done as a guild, the 5 benches that have already been made and ones for the future. Wanted to make sure that they understood what our mission was, what we were trying to do. Didn't get any kind of a commitment from them, but for another group, I've already met with one assembly and one council with the Knights of Columbus. My particular council has donated $500. They're writing a check. I have not received that. Another assembly is taking that under consideration this week. I made the presentation at their last meeting. They have a very well financed organization. I'm not sure how much they're going to give us, but I was just saying, I'm not soliciting, but our each one of the benches costs $500 for materials. So I'm waiting to hear from them. So right now, as of today, we've received $1,000, a $500 and two 250s. We should have the other $500 within a few more days, and then we'll hear from the other 2 organizations. And one thing that I did mention after talking with Chris, I said, is this going to be something that's a flash in the pan, or is it going to be ongoing? Chris verified that it's going to be a continuation. And that's one thing I'm mentioning to them, to sort of let them know, if you want to develop this as a line item in your budget, put it in, and maybe every year have it automatically coming in. Haven't gotten a response back from them yet, but that's the way I'm pursuing it. But I just wanted to let you know that all of the presentations have been well received, and made sure that they understand that all we're doing is just building the benches for the wounded veterans. So made sure they understood what the Purple Heart Project was all about too. So I left some brochures with them. Just wanted to give you an update as to that. So it looks like we have hopefully a good source of funding, not only for the present and also for the future. And they did give us a little memento of giving a presentation tonight, which I'm giving to Terry for the guild. But just want to give you an update on that. It's running late, but just want to let you know where we stand with that funding.
over there.
I'll take a red one here. Red one for door. Somebody have a mistake, wants their door prize back? Okay.
We'll take the red out.
So this one is for the, veneer.
All right, so maple veneer.
There
It's gonna be that one. 840. Last 3 digits, 840.
There you go. That's a good one.
What's this for?
For the, roller door.
Okay.
46, 46. Got the.
For prices?
Alright, so we got the $10 discard or gift card to Brett, thank you. And then we have some
Real bit stuff.
drill bit sets. Thank you. And then a tape measure and then a bore hat.
So. 264. 264.
That 264. All right, go on, you get to pay first.
$257. $257.
Mike?
$263. $263.
There you go.
You get these two. Oh, no, you get all those signatures.
Grab one.
I think that's, oh, one more. Yeah, go ahead and grab one. My bad. 279. 279.
Going once. Going twice. Okay.
Miss Lisa, draw a lucky number. It's 282. 282.
That's yours.
That's mine? Okay, I'll take it. Keep something coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, all.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think that's it. Anybody have anything closing? All right.
Go get, turn your name tags in. Good job, Ryan.
Yeah. In a couple of weeks at bench top.